Welcome once again to another informative and exciting show, Love Power Show. First of all, I want to thank you, Brother Isaac Woodridge, for being here with us today as a fantastic technician in the studio. Also, Brother Talut El Amin. Brother Omar Baruda should be approaching shortly. Lonnie Simmons, Jeffrey Steele. And today as we promised last week, we're continuing our series on white supremacy. That sound okay, Brother Lonnie? Let's break it down. Let's not play with it. Yesterday, well, Sunday as in yesterday, last Sunday as in today. But let's talk about white supremacy, what it is and what it does. How we look, Brother Talu? Okay. And last week we defined white supremacy as a culmination of negative terms which had to do with racism, discrimination, prejudice, and all those words. Is that right, Brother Talu? And that's what we said. So today, let's start, as we promised. Last week we said we would start with the word power. The word power. And we have a document here. That's what we do often. We have evidence. We have backup. We have a document of research that we can refer to. Is that right? That's what, right. So we are not, well, sometimes I throw my opinion in there, but we're not entirely opinion-based, is that right? Right, so here's what the authors say about power. They say power is control of or access to those institutions sanctioned by the state. Definition by Barbara Major of the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. And that place is in New Orleans, they say. I want to go back to you to start us off, Brother Talu. Mm-hmm. Can you concur or build on this definition of power that the young lady gives us? And does that sound like something that ties back into white supremacy?
Yes, absolutely. What we must understand is that a suppressed people's definition of power is totally different from the world's definition of power. Power, the actual effect of power is one who has the ability to execute their will. Mm-hmm. That's the definition of power. Mm-hmm. That's how the world operates with power. We don't do that as a people. We have no way of executing our will. So in fact, if we're going to call ourselves a people in relationship to people around the world, we're the only people on the planet Earth that cannot execute their will. In fact, having zero power.
Okay, let me read another statement, and this is from Dr. Wade Nobles, another prominent African-American scholar, if you will, teacher, psychologist. He says power is the ability, building on what you just said, Talu, the ability to define reality. You just spoke on reality. And to convince other people that it is their definition. Definition by Dr. Wade Nobles. Jeffrey, will you take that one?
Thank you. Definitely.
Glad to have you today. Yes.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
Absolutely happy to be here.
Yes.
Was unhappy that I wasn't able to make it last week or wasn't able to see the show because of course, this is what we continue to deal with.
Yes.
Week to week.
Yes.
But definitely, they have the means to execute their will because they own and control the instruments and the tools to be able to display their propaganda to us on a mass level. And so that also goes into their power structure through media and newspapers and magazines, which we do not really have a large ownership of here. But also, I keep coming across this word will in these definitions of power that we have. And so the question becomes, well, what is a will? What are they talking about? Their will. This is something that they have defined for themselves as something that they feel that they want or desire, and they brought maybe even God into the picture and saying, well, that's what a manifest destiny is, their will to take over the world. So we don't have we defined the will for ourselves as saying that we have the same goal. And I think that plays into the whole idea of us not having power, is we haven't defined what it is that we want and what we desire.
Okay,
as a group.
Let's be clear. Let's be more specific.
That's correct.
We're talking about white supremacy in the United States of America. We're talking about African Americans, black people. I think that's sufficient at this point. And we're also referring to the dominant class. And I'm being nice
That's correct.
when I say the dominant class. So when I say the dominant class, we know who we're talking about. So-called white people. Is that right? Now, I want to read something, Lonnie. And it says that power is ownership and control of the major resources of a state and the capacity to make and enforce decisions based on this ownership and control. This is what this. So we have a compilation of definitions about power, and it sounds awfully powerful. Say something about what I just read in relationship to white supremacy. Let's break it down.
Let's break it down.
Yes.
Let's break it down in Tennessee.
All right.
They have land. They own the land here. So
White people.
the white people own
Okay.
the land here. And so by them owning the land, they own everything. And if we want to get into power, we're going to have to get land. And
African American.
African Americans. How to obtain that land, that's what we need to focus on. For one thing, because if you don't own land, you can't make too much rules. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you own land, you can have privatization on your land or whatever, but you can have, the police supposed to, protect your land. If we can't own any land, then we can't
Protection.
Okay.
we can't afford our own protection, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? But that's just an example. But as far as the power, like I said, that's one of our resources. Food comes from the land.
Yes.
The cattle on the land. So
Yes.
we don't own any of that. That right there, they are marketing to us, and we're not getting anything. We're not gaining. So
Right.
I think we're gonna have to somehow.
Right. You're saying that you brought up 3 topics going down the road. And you're saying that African Americans are still the biggest consumers
Biggest consumers.
on the planet, called consumerism, which is a disease. You also brought up something about the role of the police. Going forward, we're going to talk about the origin of slavery and the police. That came up the other day. And you also brought up, we're going to talk more about how this group, Omar, something that we love to talk about, how they got their wealth. Is that right? Let me read. Got a couple more things on this power thing, Omar, and I want to read, and I want you to help us with this, okay? Power is the capacity of a group of people to decide what they want and to act on and organize and get to it. Power, a group of people, decide what they want, get organized, and act on it and get it done. Help us out. Let me read this next one, and go get into it for us, okay? This next one says, in terms of an individual, power is the capacity to act. Capacity, that word capacity. What do you say?
You know, we had the term back in the 60s, black power.
Mm-hmm.
And the power that we referred to was the ability to cause white folks a period of discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we were singing We Shall Overcome, which was written by a Jew,
Okay. That's nice to know.
they were happy with us singing and marching.
Mm-hmm.
But when America caught fire after Dr. King's assassination by the United States government, then they felt like these black folk have some power that we got to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
America has power, and white folks in general, not just the American white folks, but the white folks that crawled out of the cave originally, they have power all over the earth. It was one senator that said 194 countries on earth, America has a military base of some kind in 130 of them, and they are not there by invitation. I just heard Mr. Farrakhan say yesterday that there are over 1,000 military bases that circle the globe.
Mm-hmm.
So they got plenty of power to go in and take what they want at whatever price they want to take it, pay for it, or give it for free.
Mm-hmm.
And the people there are so dominated they cannot fight back. That's power. Black folk don't have that kind of power yet, because you got to have unity in order to have power.
Okay.
And we are too disunited to come together and let them see our power.
I see. So, see, he made the statement about the individual, and you just brought up the term unity.
Yes.
So, big unity as opposed to the individual as opposed to, it seems to me that the individual should be teaching, organizing. Go ahead.
Look at the war we just got out of in Iraq. 2,978 people died at the World Trade Center based on the American government blowing it up,
Mm-hmm.
or some element of the government blowing it up.
Mm-hmm.
And there were people who didn't think anything about Iraq, Iran, or any of those Islamic countries.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the lie that they told, they galvanized the people. First, they united those people behind that lie.
Mm-hmm.
Then they galvanized people to go and murder other people who had done nothing to us in the first place.
Mhm.
That's power.
Yes.
And then everything they could pull out of the hat, every bomb, bullet, and rocket that they could pull out of the hat, they shot it at that country innocently. Innocent people died, and then we don't even apologize. In fact, that's the ultimate insult.
Mhm.
Is when you go and attack somebody who's done nothing to you, and then when you victimize them, you even apologize for what you did.
Talu, racism, once again. Here's what the document says. The document says racism is race prejudice plus power, a definition by the People's Institute. And the author says, I use white supremacy as a synonym for racism. Now, I think this should tie to the next statement. Let me get on into internalized racism here. Talk about that in reference to African Americans and how we respond to racism. It says that internalized racism, the poison of racism, seeping into the psyches of people of color, until people of color believe about themselves what whites believe about them, that they are inferior to whites. The behavior of one's person of color toward another that stems from his psychic poisoning, often called interracial hostility. This acceptance by persons of color of Eurocentric values. And here's a group of people who have done extensive research on what they're talking about. Go ahead, Doctor.
Yeah, white supremacy and racism are synonymous. There's no question about that. You can't have one without the other.
Okay.
Okay. But to make white supremacy more palatable, they teach us in our schools and learning institutions and society
These European schools.
the
that we go to.
racism.
Okay.
Instead of saying you are practicing white supremacy, we in turn use their word that was given to us. You are practicing racism. That's a mild way. That's an extremely mild way
Yes.
to talk about the ugliest human destructive power
Yes.
of white supremacy. Now, who's unique on the planet and able to destroy white supremacy? We are. The black American man and woman
Yes.
has the wherewithal to destroy white supremacy.
Yes.
If we decide to execute our will. We've not decided to execute our will, so white supremacy raged around the planet, destroying millions, if not billions, of human lives. God Almighty gave us a duty, a job, a responsibility on this planet. And it is not partying. It is not making love with each other. It is not checking the body of the woman. It is not eating. It is not sleeping. It's destroying white supremacy.
That's right.
We must give our lives to that.
Okay.
That's why we're born. That's why we're put on the planet. To kill something, an idea, a concept that has destroyed billions of people's lives for 6,000 years.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Go. One more statement. Go ahead.
One more statement.
You want to clamp it? Go ahead and put the clamp on it.
We must orientate ourselves. We must unify ourselves around one principle, and one principle alone:
That's right.
the destruction of white supremacy.
That's right.
Okay.
Now, if we do that,
Okay.
if we just wake up in the morning and say, you know, we have to destroy white supremacy, we're unified.
That's right.
And 40 million people are capable of executing their will. And that's power. Until then, we're dealing with quasi-power,
Okay.
pseudo-power.
Yeah, we've brought up several subjects to keep us busy for the next 2 or 3 months. Lonnie, you brought will into the equation, and Brother Talmud broke it down for us. He expounded and expanded on it. Now here is Jeffrey. Reverse racism. Listen to this. It is a term, according to these authors, that was created and used by white people to deny their white privilege. Those in denial use the term reverse racism to refer to hostile behavior by people of color towards whites, and to affirmative action policies, which allegedly give preferential treatment to people of color over whites. In the U.S., there is no such thing as reverse racism. What do you say to that, Jeffrey?
I like the idea. I will not run from the concept of even if they want to define it and they want to place the idea or try to hide or say that it's negative. Think about it. It's reverse racism. Even if it's reverse racism, what's the problem? Yes, I'm unapologetically that. I don't see the problem. I think the way that they defined it, since it's their definition, I guess they're trying to imply that we have the power to discriminate against them, which is not the case. The case is, if that term is going to be there, I think that we should define it as that's what we ought to be doing, is reversing racism. So that's how I see that term. Now, I do think that they use that in a way to nullify our efforts to destroy white privilege, but like my brother just said, that is our task, and that's what our will should be. So to be a reverse racism, to be a reverse racist, I think that's what we should strive to be, actually.
Okay, so if you're African American, you define definitions perhaps differently from the supremacists. And so there's an opposing point of view, and we totally disagree with the white supremacists that there's such thing as white supremacists. And so therefore, when we come to the debate, we must be courageous enough to redefine and reverse this so-called reverse racism. Because it is absolute. And what happens is that as these white supremacists, and they come in all shapes and forms, and sometimes they are all dressed up there and been to the beauty parlor and all that, and still they are white supremacists. And so, let's get to what a racist is, Lonnie. A racist is one who is both privileged and socialized on the basis of race by a white supremacist racist system. The term applies to all white people, people of European descent, living in the United States, regardless of race, gender, religion, culture, sexuality. By this definition, people of color cannot be racist. because as people within the United States system, they do not have the power to back up their prejudice. Hostilities or